Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Tomasic, President of the Chicago Bar Association, and I'm so honored to welcome all of you to this very special luncheon, the 2022 Justice John Paul Stevens Award Ceremony. I'm also very privileged to be hosting this luncheon with my friend, Greg Boyle, President of the Chicago Bar Foundation. Without question, it's fair to say that Justice Stevens was one of Chicago's greatest lawyers of all time. He was also one of the greatest Supreme Court justices to sit in our nation's highest court historically. He was always a dear friend to all of us, a dear friend to the Chicago Bar Association. He would be so proud to look out and see nearly 300 people gathered here today live in person to celebrate the fantastic achievements, extraordinary achievements of our honorees today. Thank you, friends, colleagues, members of the legal community for being here. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge many of the distinguished guests that we have here in the room today who have joined us for the Stevens Award, starting, of course, with our head table. At the far right, we have Beth McMean, Executive Director of the Chicago Bar Association. And I'll ask everyone just to hold their applause to the end so we can get through. I might do that a couple times today. We have Dan Berkowitz, our chair of our Young Lawyer section. Nina Fain, treasurer of the Chicago Bar Association. We have Steve Pflaum, honoree. We have the Honorable Thomas Mulroy, honoree. We also have with us today Judge Arnette Hubbard, honoree. We have John Shikoda, our second vice president, and of course, Justice Neville of the Illinois Supreme Court. To my left, we have Greg Boyle. We have Judge Paul Meyer, Chief Judge of the United States District Court. We have Tim Evans, Judge Tim Evans, Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County. I have to take my glasses off to see Ray Koenig, our first vice president. My friend Sandra Yamate, honoree. We have Lowell Sachnoff, honoree as well. I see Lynn Grayson, our immediate past president. And Mary Smith, who's the president-elect of the American Bar Association. Thank you for joining us. And the great Bob Glaves at the opposite end of the table. So thank you all for joining us. I'd also like to acknowledge many of the nearly 300 people, friends, colleagues, members of our legal community who are with us here today. I think, and I know Justice Stevens would be very proud to look out and see so many distinguished guests and honorees. And I'd like to ask many of you to just please stand, everyone to hold their applause. First, I'd like to ask all the federal and state judges to please stand. The past Chicago Bar Association presidents, the past presidents of the Chicago Bar Foundation, the elected officials who are here, the Stevens Committee members, all of the fine Young Lawyer section chairs, past and present, and also the past Stevens Award winners, and many of the other bar presidents and officers who've joined us here today. Thank you all for joining us for this very, very important and great award ceremony. Greg Boyle will talk about the Stevens Award a bit, but I just want to explain, I think most everyone here is well aware of the great honor receiving the Stevens Award is. But the Stevens Award was established in 2000 in honor of Chicago's great Justice John Paul Stevens, who retired from our highest court in 2010 after 35 years of distinguished service, and he passed away in 2019. In spirit, the Stevens Award recognizes the extraordinary accomplishments of the honorees. The Chicago Bar Association and the Chicago Bar Foundation celebrate annually Illinois lawyers who have demonstrated extraordinary integrity and service to the community throughout their careers. Those selected exemplify the highest personal integrity and devotion of public service, just as Justice Stevens did. So we're very proud today for all of you to join us in celebrating our distinguished recipients of the award in an alphabetical order. We have the Honorable Arnette Hubbard, the Honorable Thomas Mulroy, Steve Pflaum, Lowell Sachnoff, and Sandra Yamate. Like past Stevens Award recipients, this year's honorees are among the finest human beings in the legal profession in Chicago. We are privileged to recognize this tremendous slate of jurists and lawyers for the substantial impact they have made on our legal community throughout their careers, contributing through their unwavering commitment and service to the community, the Chicago Bar Association, and the Chicago Bar Foundation. Before we enjoy lunch, I'd like to ask my friend, the president of the Chicago Bar Foundation, to step up and talk about this very, very prestigious award.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Greg Boyle. As he said, I'm the president of the Chicago Bar Foundation, and I'm very honored to join Tim in welcoming you to this celebration of these truly outstanding and inspiring award recipients. I'm going to echo many of Tim's comments, but mostly try and move us along both to luncheon and to get to meet all of these very, very deserving recipients. The Stevens Award was conceived by the Justices' Law Clerks, the Chicago Bar Association, and the Chicago Bar Foundation as a tribute to the Justice, his long and distinguished career, and the tremendous legacy he left to our profession, our system of justice, and our community. And as a result, it's no surprise that the recipients of this award, both this year and if one looks back at the illustrious past recipients, are those attorneys who best exemplify the justice's commitment to integrity, to public service, and to putting those into practice as we pursue our profession in the practice of law every day. And it is abundantly clear, and will become even more clear as we meet each one of these recipients, that these attorneys and honorees are truly the best of the best in the Chicago legal community. Justice Stevenson's legacy included his commitment to pro bono and public service in his career as a practicing lawyer and as a judge, and it should continue to serve as an inspiration for all of us to persevere in our efforts to fulfill our nation's fundamental principle of equal access to justice for all. As the CBA's charitable arm, the Chicago Bar Foundation is committed to continuing this work and thus Justice Stevenson's legacy with and on behalf of the Chicago legal community to ensure that our justice system is fair and accessible to everyone in the community. I want to personally thank the many of you here who already support the CBF and our initiatives, and I encourage all of you to take up this cause of access to justice that is so fundamental to who we are as a profession. Thank you again for being here to celebrate with us and all of these deserving honorees, and again, congratulations again to all the honorees today. Thank you.
So our first honoree really needs a little introduction. The Honorable Arnette Hubbard has had a very distinguished career. She started as a lawyer in 1969, an attorney for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law. She's committed with great lifelong passion her entire career and self to voter education and participation. She was appointed to 3 consecutive terms on the Chicago Board of Elections and served as the only woman for 8 years. She has been an absolute trailblazer in the practice of law, serving as the first woman president of the National Bar Association and the first woman president of the Cook County Bar Association. She was appointed to the Cook County Circuit Court by the Supreme Court in 1997 and unelected in 1998. She is an impressive mentor who has mentored many law students, lawyers, judges, young students of color across the nation. I am pleased, through the assistance of Ricardo, to present Judge Arnette Hubbard. Ricardo, if you would, please.
Chicago Bar Association President Tim Tomasic, Chicago Bar Foundation President Gregory Boyle, Chair and members of the Selection Committee, I'm deeply honored to be a recipient of an award named for Justice John Paul Stevens, a man noted for his principles and integrity. Thank you for this honor. I'm further honored to be in the company of my distinguished fellow honorees. One concept I share with Justice Stevens is that if we're going to live our best lives, it's good to have an intention to do good and prepare to do so. Along the way, we must infuse ourselves with positive goals and positive people. I strive to follow that path. We each have different talents, gifts, education, different experiences in life, and we value those differences, as Justice Stevens came to do over the decades more and more, because we know these gifts form the tapestry which make us and America better. Members of the mentioned bar, my friends, my colleagues, I thank you for your presence here today. More important, for your contributions to my development and growth through the years. Without taking that dangerous step of naming people, I thank all who contributed to my journey to reach this day. All means everyone who has touched my life. Each and every one helped me to grow. Now, to violate the rule I just made, I must thank my son, Gregory, who also sacrificed and contributed to this journey. Gregory, please stand. These times today command that we all be our best selves, and we will.
Thank you. Judge Hubbard, if you could come up and join Greg and I, please come on up. We'd like to give you your award. By the way, these are very fantastic and beautiful, but Greg and I decided not to drop them and break them.
Our second honoree is the Honorable Thomas Mulroy. I'd like to welcome his wonderful wife, Elaine. Judge Mulroy has had a very distinguished career, certainly as a formidable trial lawyer and a jurist. His bio is too lengthy to cover it in its entirety. But he began his career as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Illinois, where he was a very successful, formidable prosecutor. He served in private practice in very prestigious practices, including at Jenner & Block, also where he developed a reputation of an extremely formidable trial advocate and litigator. He ascended to the bench in 2007 and spent 15 years both in Chancery and in the law divisions of the Circuit Court, and now serves as a mediator. Judge Mulroy also is affiliated with so many different legal organizations. He's a fellow in the American College of Trial Lawyers. He's a member of the Chicago Inner Court. We're very, very fortunate that he's been a very active member of the Chicago Bar Association. He also served as president between 2017 and 2018. But the one thing that all of us at the CBA know about Judge Mulroy is that he has always worked tirelessly and done heavy lifting. He's developed programs, not just CLE, but programs like mediation. He was a wonderful president. I got to work with him on a number of committees. I still work with Judge Mulroy. I can personally attest to his unwavering commitment to our community and to the Chicago Bar Association, but he still rolls his sleeves up today, some 5 years after his presidency, doing work for the Chicago Bar Association, and I'm proud to call him my friend. So I'm pleased to present Judge Thomas Mulroy through the assistance of Ricardo. So Ricardo, thank you.
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Justice Stevens was a great guy and a good sense of humor, and this award keeps his name alive. I'm so pleased to have received it. During my 50 years in the practice of law, I've enjoyed serving our profession. It turns out that law practice is tough, it's difficult, it's stressful. But when you work outside your practice or your job, everything seems better and you meet great people. So over my years of practice and after hours, I became involved in a lot of different professional activities. I represented criminal defendants, indigents, stayed very active at Loyola Law School where I went to school. Thank you, Dean Michael Kaufman. I taught trial advocacy at DePaul and Northwestern. I was a member of the Illinois Attorney Disciplinary Commission. I was on the inquiry panel and I acted as a special counsel. Thank you, Jerry Larkin. And of course, I participated actively in the bar associations, the American Bar, the Illinois State Bar, the Seventh Federal Circuit, and especially my favorite, the Great Chicago Bar Association. Thank you, Terry Murphy and Beth McMean. But because all of this is before Zoom, it cost me additional hours after work. Thank you, Elaine Mulroy, my wife of 53 years. My extracurricular service expanded my network of friends and gave me great pleasure. For example, there's no joy like the rare not guilty verdict in an indigent criminal case in the federal court. When my client, Dale White, a professional counterfeiter, heard the jury foreman say, "We find the defendant not guilty, Your Honor," he had been in a slump and snapped up and said, "What did they say? What did they say?" Thank you, but I must say that qualifying for this award was easy, and being deeply involved in the service of the profession was the most pleasurable time of my long legal service.
Judge Mulroy, if you could come join us. No, you're good. Congratulations.
Good to see you.
Here's your congratulations, Judge.
It is a great honor for me to introduce our third honoree, Steve Pflaum. Again, a long and distinguished chair. Just a few highlights. He is co-chair of litigation department and chair of pro bono committee at Neil Gerber and Eisenberg LLP. Very impressively, a founding member of the longtime chair of the Illinois Judicial Ethics Committee, which Beth McMean and I had the pleasure of attending last week. And it's just a fantastic committee. And through your leadership and the work of the many judges and lawyers that serve on that committee, I think it's fair to say that our judiciary has served in such an extraordinary way, and thank you for that great work. The Supreme Court has also called on him to be chair of the Supreme Court's Committee on Professional Responsibility, to be chair of the Illinois Court's Statutory Court Fee Task Force, and he was general counsel to the Chicago Bar Association from 1996 to 2009, and his service has always been greatly appreciated. I want to point out, too, that earlier this year, his committee, the Illinois Judicial Ethics Committee, completed several years of hard work redrafting the Illinois Code of Judicial Conduct, which was passed by the Supreme Court this summer. So congratulations, Steve, for such a distinguished career. Ricardo, if you could please introduce Steve Pflaum.
Before today, the greatest professional honor that I've been fortunate enough to receive was serving as general counsel of this association. to be the lawyer for the CBA's lawyers. One of the perks of that position was that for 10 years, I sat at the dais at this event, admittedly, always at the very far end, and watched the giants of our legal community be recognized with the Stevens Award. I remember hoping that I would have the opportunity, the ability, and the good fortune to someday have accomplished enough, not just in serving my clients, but also in serving our courts, our profession, and the public, to be deemed worthy of receiving that honor. I am humbled and grateful that the Stevens Award Committee has found me deserving, and I am truly honored to be receiving this award along with Judge Hubbard, Judge Mulroy, Lowell Sachnoff, and Sandra Yamate, each of whom I have long admired. I also want to express my gratitude for my family for understanding why it was important for me to devote all the time that I've dedicated to my work over the years, and to my professional family at Neil Gerber and Eisenberg for supporting me in the various activities, especially the public service activities for which I am being recognized. I do have one bone to pick with the Stevens Award Committee, however, meaning no disrespect to past or present honorees. I have to say that I feel I am obviously much too young to be receiving what is essentially a Lifetime Achievement Award. I will take this arguably premature honor then as a challenge to try to do even more before taking down my shingle to help lawyers and judges exhibit the highest standards of professionalism, to help break down the barriers that continue to impede members of historically marginalized groups from thriving in our profession and from receiving justice in our courts, and to continue to serve the profession and this association of which I am so very proud to be a member. Thank you.
Steve, Greg and I would like to ask you to come up. Steve, by the way, isn't kidding about his youthfulness. He's an aggressive world-class skier and is recovering from a little bit of a fall. So thanks for
Bruised ego.
Bruised ego. There you go. Congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done.
We are extremely honored to have with us as an honoree so deserving of this award, and that's Lowell Sachnoff. Lowell, if you read his bio, has had one of the most distinguished legal careers that I have seen. He served as general counsel for the Illinois Department of Mental Health, and he overhauled the state mental health code to expand the rights of the mentally ill. Early 1960s, he opened up a very successful, well-known firm, Sachnoff and Weaver, with the vision of doing well for their growing families and others. And one of the impressive things that jumped out at all, I think every committee member and certainly everybody at the CBA and the CBF, is that his firm was one of the first to represent Guantanamo Bay detainees. He himself was down doing that very important work. He's now retired as a corporate litigator. He continues to volunteer in public interest matters. In addition to receiving the Stevens Award today, we are honored to share an additional recognition from Lowell from Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. So I have with us, with the seal from the United States House of Representatives.
I want to thank the Chicago Bar Association for honoring me with the John Paul Stevens Award. That award has special significance for me because Stevens was my hero as a person, a lawyer, a judge, and a justice. It's hard to pin a label on Stevens' judicial philosophy because he was so fiercely independent and free of any leanings that might put his thumb on the scales of justice. However, there can be no question that his intellect was towering and his integrity unblemished. He was my North Star, a guiding light in my legal career. I'm grateful to the Chicago Bar Association for including me in such a stellar group of Stevens awardees, both past and present, including my longtime dear friend Leonard Schrager, who is here. And as I sit with my fellow awardees today, I'm proud to say that I find myself in such good company. But I wouldn't be here today without two invaluable pillars of support. First, from my wife, Faye Clayton, a great lawyer in her own right, and her patience and love and putting up with my idiosyncrasies and keeping me on course from my tendency to wander off. And second, from the group of young lawyers who call themselves my ducklings and who worked with me and assisted me throughout my career as a litigator. They deserve substantial credit for whatever successes I had. I'm fortunate that as a litigator, I was able to do well. But as I look back, it was far more important and gratifying for me that I was also able to do good. And high on that work are the 5 trips I took to the prison at Guantanamo Bay. That legal and moral hellhole is still not closed. To represent prisoners held for decades without being charged or tried, and being able to get my clients released and relocated to friendly countries. That work was surely the high point of my career as a lawyer.
Lowell, if you can join us at the podium for the presentation. Congratulations.
Our fifth honoree, like all our honorees, are very special lawyers who've had extraordinary careers, and I'm very proud to call the next honoree, Sandra Yamate, my friend and a best friend of the Chicago Bar Association. We rely on Sandra all the time for advice and direction on diversity, inclusion, culture. She's one of the most intelligent lawyers that I've met. Sandra continues to act in the role of Chief Executive Officer of the Institute for Inclusion in the Legal Profession. She spent 10 years as director of the ABA's Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity in the profession, the preceding 3 years as first executive director of the Chicago Committee on Minorities and Large Law Firms. But of course, you don't get to these positions unless you are a seasoned, successful, and former litigator, which she was for over 10 years in the city of Chicago. I know the board of managers, leadership, the executive director, Beth McMean, we call her constantly for her advice and input on programming and issues. We are enormously fortunate to have Sandra serve as a current member on the Chicago Bar Association's Board of Managers. I'm so honored and pleased to be able to present through Ricardo, Sandra Yamate. Ricardo?
I'm still feeling flabbergasted to receive this award. Thank you to both the Chicago Bar Association and the Chicago Bar Foundation. It is an incredible honor to be included in such esteemed company as Judge Arnette Hubbard, Judge Thomas Mulroy, Steve Pflaum, and Lowell Sachnoff. And it's humbling to join the ranks of the past recipients, all giants in Chicago's legal community. I come from a family whose history includes arriving in the U.S. from Japan at a time when the law precluded any possibility of U.S. citizenship. But because U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark established birthright citizenship, once women gained the right to vote, my grandmother could become one of the first Asian American women to exercise that right. Toiling on the plantations of Kauai during World War II, the young men in the family joined the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. They became part of the most highly decorated unit in U.S. military history. Establishing a farm in the Pacific Northwest on land that U.S. alien land laws prohibited them from ever owning, they farmed it successfully until being incarcerated in World War II concentration camps without due process of law. It would take some 40 years to achieve Japanese American redress. Trying to purchase their first home in Chicago, only to have a powerful local politician interfere with their mortgage approval, my parents never learned how a Jewish lawyer who empathized with their situation learned about it. But he did, and through his efforts, my parents not only got their mortgage, but at a better rate than originally offered. Law has shaped my family's history, so it wasn't a surprise that I chose to go to law school. Indeed, it was encouraged. My eldest auntie liked to say that my grandfather, who by all accounts was a community leader and something of a rabble-rouser, would have been so proud that one of his grandchildren became a lawyer, although he would have been surprised that it was a granddaughter. I have tried to use that law degree to serve my community, to create more opportunities for lawyers from underrepresented groups while advancing our profession, and to leave the world generally, and the legal profession specifically, better than I found it. I hope I have used it to emulate Justice Stevens and all he stood for as best I could. If I have had any success in that endeavor, I certainly did not do it alone. So many people at the Chicago Bar Association and Chicago Bar Foundation have always been there, giving help, encouragement, and support. I would be remiss not to give special thanks, though, to Beth McMean, Terry Murphy, Bob Glaves, Aurora Austriaco, Judge E. Kenneth Wright, Desmond Manny, and Ricardo Islas. I am also very grateful to my parents, my siblings, my husband, and my ever-patient dogs who have always supported me and never complained about how much my work has taken me away from them. Thank you so very much.
Sandra, if you can come up and join Greg and I for the presentation. Congratulations, Sandra, for everything you do. Thank you.
So in closing up our award ceremony today, I'd just like to say thanks again to President Greg Boyle and the Chicago Bar Foundation for all the work you guys do and that we do together. I, as Vice President, had the privilege of serving with the CBF this past year, and it was an absolute pleasure. And I'd also like to thank the joint CBA and CBF Selection Committee for choosing such distinguished honorees as we did for this year's 2022 Justice John Paul Stevens Award. Most importantly, I'd like to personally thank on behalf of the CBA and the CBS the extraordinary honorees for the tremendous contributions they have made to our legal profession and community. Beth McMean, thank you. Ricardo Islas, thank you. CBS staff, thank you. The great Bob Glaves, thank you for everything that you constantly do for both of these great organizations. So thank all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the 2023 Stevens Awards next year. Thank you.
Great job.